Good afternoon, friends from the media. Welcome to today's press conference. First, I will make two announcements. At the invitation of Premier of the State Council Li Qiang, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez will pay an official visit to China from April 11th to 15th. At the invitation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the DPRK, member of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee and Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi will visit the DPRK from April 9th to 10th. Now questions, please.
谢谢发言人。总台央视记者提问。中方刚刚发布了西班牙首相桑切斯将访华的消息。
CCTV on the upcoming visit of Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez can share the arrangements and China's expectations for the visit. This will be the Prime Minister's fourth visit to China in 4 years. It will also be another important high-level exchange between China and Spain shortly after last year's visits to China by the King and Prime Minister of Spain. During the visit, President Xi Jinping will meet with Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez and Premier Li Qiang, and Chairman of the NPC Standing Committee Zhao Leji will hold talks and meet with him respectively for in-depth exchanges of views on bilateral relations and issues of mutual interest. Spain is an important cooperation partner of China in the EU. Over recent years, under the strategic guidance of leaders of the two countries, bilateral relations have achieved robust development, and cooperation in various fields has made solid progress, which effectively improved the well-being of both peoples. The upcoming visit will provide another opportunity for China and Spain working together to deepen strategic mutual trust, have closer exchanges and cooperation, and step up coordination on multilateral affairs so as to bring the bilateral relations to a new height and make greater contribution to world peace and stability.
下一个问题。
Thank you. Question from Sky News in the UK. President Donald Trump suggested in a conversation with the AFP news agency that he believes it was China that pushed Iran to negotiate the ceasefire deal that we now have. Are you able to confirm if this is true, if China was involved with bringing those parties to the table? And secondly, if China was involved, there already seems to be quite significant discrepancies and confusion about some of the terms, particularly whether Lebanon's included in the ceasefire and whether the enrichment of uranium is part of the 10-point plan presented to the Americans. Are you able to shed any light on any of those specifics? And crucially, is the deal falling apart before it's even really begun? Thank you.
伊朗战事爆发以来，中方一直
Since the eruption of the conflict, China have always been advocating for a ceasefire and peace. Foreign Minister Wang Yi had 26 phone calls with foreign ministers of the relevant countries, and our special envoy is conducting shuttle diplomacy there in the Gulf region. And we have announced the 5 initiatives, along with Pakistan, about resuming peace and stability in the Gulf and Middle East region. As a responsible major country, China will continue to play a constructive role in the peace and tranquility of the region. Next one, please.
谢谢发言人。中国日报记者提问：发言人可否介绍王毅外长访问？
To follow up on Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to the DPRK, can you share more on the visit? China and the DPRK are traditional friends and neighbors bound together by mountains and rivers. It is an unswerving strategic policy of the party and the Chinese government to maintain, consolidate, and develop China-DPRK relations. Foreign Minister Wang Yi's upcoming visit is an important step for the two sides to act on the common understanding between the top leaders of the two parties and two countries, and to advance the development of China-DPRK ties. China stands ready to work with the DPRK to step up strategic communication, enhance exchanges and cooperation, and further advance China-DPRK traditional friendship and cooperative ties. Next question, please.
From Sputnik. It was previously reported that Iran intended to collect shipping fees from each vessel passing through the Strait of Hormuz and split the revenues with Oman. What's China's position on this? And given that China is in touch with all sides, can Foreign Ministry confirm if this model applies to the ceasefire arrangement that was just brokered? Thank you.
方案包含在停火协议里面。
The Strait of Hormuz is an important international trade route for goods and energy. All sides should work together towards de-escalating the situation to keep this international shipping route safe and open.
谢谢发言人。中国新闻社记者提问：据了解，近日巴基斯坦和阿富汗代表团在乌鲁木齐和中方的代表团进行了会晤。
Recently, Pakistani and Afghan delegations recently met with Chinese delegation in Urumqi. What's your comment? Based on the common understandings reached between member of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee and Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi and Pakistan Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister and some representatives of the other party, the three sides held week-long informal talks in Urumqi. The cross-departmental delegations of the three sides include representatives from authorities in charge of foreign affairs, defense, and security. The discussions were candid, pragmatic, and proceeded in sound atmosphere, which shows that the talks follow an approach oriented towards solving problems, striving for results, and taking actions. The Afghan and Pakistani delegations spoke highly of Asian security model, seeking commonality despite differences, and they commended and appreciated China's mediation efforts and thoughtful arrangements as the host country of the talks. China's fair and just position and dedication were also recognized. The Afghan and Pakistani sides reiterated that they follow the purposes and spirit of the UN Charter and the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. And they agree to refrain from actions that may escalate or complicate the situation. China will continue to provide a platform for dialogue and continue to play a constructive role for improving and developing Afghanistan-Pakistan relations.
After 7 days of intensive bilateral and trilateral meetings, China noted and summed up the talks and common understandings as follows. Afghanistan and Pakistan reiterated that the two countries are Muslim brothers and neighbors. The three sides believed that amid the turbulence and the changing international and regional situation, maintaining friendly ties between the two countries is of vital importance to people in both countries, as well as peace and stability in South Asia. The three sides stressed that dialogue and consultation is the viable and effective way to resolve complex international disputes, including disputes between Afghanistan and Pakistan. The three sides agreed to discuss a comprehensive plan to resolve issues in the relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan and identified the core and priority issues. China stressed that terrorism is the core issue affecting Afghanistan-Pakistan relations. The three sides believed that the Urumqi process has substantive meaning and agreed to maintain communication and dialogue on relevant matters.
It is reported that the Security Council yesterday voted on the draft resolution on the Strait of Hormuz submitted by Bahrain. China and Russia voted, and the Council failed to adopt the resolution. But according to the permanent representatives of the two countries, a new draft resolution have been submitted. Can you give more details? On the draft resolution on the Strait of Hormuz voted at the Security Council, China's permanent representative to the UN in the explanation of vote has elaborated on China's stance. China maintains that the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of Gulf states must be fully respected, and the safety and security of shipping lanes and energy infrastructure must also be safeguarded. The root cause of the disruption at the Strait of Hormuz is the U.S.-Israel illegal military operations against Iran. The fundamental solution to ensuring safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz is to achieve a ceasefire and of hostilities as soon as possible. The Security Council's actions should be aimed at de-escalating the situation. They must not provide the legal veneer for unauthorized military operations. They must also not grant a license to the use of force, let alone further exacerbate tensions and add fuel to the fire. China's position is objective and impartial. Our vote will stand the test of time. The text of that draft resolution, China called for dialogue and negotiation. This is according to the expectation of the international community and will be supported by all sides. China stands ready to work with all sides for the de-escalation of the situation and resume peace and stability in the Gulf and Middle East region.
A question from the New York Times. Did China make a specific request in the past couple of days to Iran to agree to some outline of a ceasefire? Thank you.
同意停火。
我已经介绍了中方所。
I have made introductions about China's effort. We've been advocating for peace talk and a ceasefire.
Hello, question for Honorable Agency. I will also ask about the ceasefire deal. I want to learn about what's your comment about it, because there are parallels with your calls before during the crisis. There is a deal for 2 weeks. There's a ceasefire deal spanning 2 weeks, and there is a deal about opening of the Hormuz Strait. So we see some elements that China also was calling for. So I want to know what's your comment about the deal. And secondly, we know that Pakistan has mediated as the sides brokered this deal. But I want to also learn, did you have directly involved with any party during this process for the ceasefire? I mean, specifically with one party and make recommendations to that party? Thank you.
首先，中方对有关方面宣布达成停火安排表示欢迎。
China welcomed the ceasefire agreement and welcome the efforts made by Pakistan and other sides in mediation. China advocates for a ceasefire and to resolve the conflict through political means and to achieve a long-term stability in the Gulf and Middle East region. And China made its own effort in this regard.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
Thank you. Another question relating to the Middle East. Despite the ceasefire agreements and the agreement to temporarily reopen the Strait of Hormuz, the energy crisis that's been caused by all this and that's hit Asia very, very hard is likely to continue for some time. China's been accused throughout of being more insulated from that energy crisis because it continues to import sanctioned Iranian oil and then obscures the fact it does this via shadow fleets and hard-to-trace transactions. Does China deny that it uses so-called teapot refineries to deal in sanctioned Iranian oil? And what do you say to the accusation that this trade has elongated the conflict? Thank you.
首先，世界经济和能源安全。
Firstly, the world economic and energy security being influenced. The root cause is the conflict in Iran. And China firmly opposes the illicit unilateral sanctions that have no basis in international law or the authorization of the UN Security Council. Next question.
Yonhap News Agency. Related to the DPRK, first, the DPRK launched ballistic missiles for 2 consecutive days. This violates the resolutions of the UN Security Council. What's China's comment on this? Second, Director of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea, Kim Il-jung, said in response to the RK President Lee Jae-myung's expression of regret over drone entering DPRK airspace, President of the State Affairs Commission, Kim Jong-un, said his attitude is frank and broad-minded. Yesterday, First Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of the DPRK, Jung Kong-chol, reiterated that the RK would always remain the DPRK's most hostile enemy state. What's your comment?
For the first question, we've noticed that there's different stances and opinions on the launch, and we've noticed the statements. China's stance on the peninsula issue does not change. Next one, please.
Thank you, Associated Press. A couple of questions, one related to Iran. Can you tell us a little bit more about the behind the scenes that China is doing to try to solve this crisis? I know that maybe you cannot tell us a lot of details, but if you can talk about why China is like privileging the behind the scenes that going public in their efforts. And second, on Pakistan and Afghanistan, have you agreed on a new meeting here in China or not yet for the peace talks?
On the first question, and concerning Iran's conflict, we've introduced China's efforts for many times. We've always advocated for political and diplomatic means to resolve the conflict, and we've stayed in touch in all parties, and we will continue to make efforts for de-escalation and a full ceasefire. And on the relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan, just now I've made detailed introduction on the situation. I think this meeting had a very important consensus that the two sides will continue to stay in touch, and the Urumqi process is quite meaningful. So I think we can expect more communications on all levels in the future.
A question from the New York Times. Iran's ambassador to China reportedly asked for a security guarantee from China about an hour ago. What is China's position? Would it consider a security guarantee for Iran? Thank you.
We hope all sides can use dialogue and negotiation to resolve the conflict, and China will stay in touch with all parties to make more efforts in de-escalation and stop the fighting.
From the BBC, just a follow-up question to that one. In terms of securing this peace, might China play any role on the ground or in the ocean around there? Has China offered to send ships to help monitor the Strait of Hormuz or anything specific like that at this stage?
Could you repeat your question? I can't hear very clearly.
Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, from the BBC. In terms of securing this peace, has China made any specific offer to be part of that? For example, to send ships to the region or in any way play a role in making sure that the current peace holds?
目前你这个问题我没有可以提供的信息。
I have no information for your question.
Hi, FN News Agency. So, according to reports, Brazilian authorities have added Chinese automaker BYD to a list of companies linked to labor conditions analogous to slavery, following an inspection at one of its projects. What is China's view on this case? Thank you.
The Chinese government attaches great importance to protecting the lawful rights and interests of workers and always asks Chinese companies to abide by laws and regulations in their operation. Next one, please.
Thank you. Question from Reuters. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said the U.S. has been able to access Chinese rare earth, but the U.S. is nonetheless working on plurilateral agreements to boost alternative supplies. Should the U.S. be concerned about the return of Chinese curbs on rare earth export to the U.S.?
你重复一下你的问题好吗？
U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said the U.S. has been able to access Chinese rare earths, but the U.S. is nonetheless working on plurilateral agreements to boost alternative supplies. Should the U.S. be concerned about the return of Chinese curbs on rare earths exports to the U.S.?
具体问题建议你向中方的主管。
For the specific question, I'd refer you to competent authorities. I would say that in essence, the trade between China and U.S. is mutually beneficial. The two sides should implement the important consensus between the two top leaders and inject more stability to economic and trade cooperation between the two countries.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
Another question from the BBC. I wanted to ask you about the death of a Chinese researcher in the United States at the University of Michigan named Wang Danhao. Can you tell us if the Chinese government has any concerns regarding his death, especially apparently his death followed some questioning from the authorities in the United States? Any more information on what China would like to see happen with this case?
Before we have made clear our stance about this tragic event, I would like to stress that the Chinese side urged the U.S. to make a thorough investigation on this case and to stop the discriminative law enforcement against Chinese students in the U.S. The Chinese side will take efforts to safeguard the lawful rights and interests of Chinese citizens in the U.S. Next one, please.
Can I just ask a technical follow-up question, just to make sure that his name has been reported correctly? Wang Danhao, is that right?
It concerns personal privacy. I will not give a specific information concerning his name. Next one, please.
Thank you, Associated Press again. Quick question. We have seen reports that Vietnam's top leader, To Lam, is planning to come to China. Do you have any information about that?
你这个问题我目前没有可以提供的信息。
I have no information on this question right now.
下一个问题。
Next one, please.
还有其他问题吗？
Any other questions?
那好，今天的记者会到此。
This is all for today's press conference. Thank you.